Holidays are meant to be magical, but let's be real, they're sometimes packed with stress, unmet expectation, and arguments about really obscure things like ham or napkins. Big spoiler alert, it's never really about the ham. In this episode, I'm unpacking a little bit about what's hiding behind those seemingly silly holiday fights. I want to share a little bit about what I see show up in my therapy room, on my therapist's couch, why some people clash over things that seem really obscure or unimportant. If you've ever found yourself mid-holiday argument wondering what are we even fighting about, then this one's for you. I'm going to share with you some of the reasons why this might be happening and what you can do about it. I had a really great conversation on the Well Hello Anxiety podcast with Jodie Richardson, and we talked a little bit about why holiday fights are never really about the thing they're about. And the example of the holiday ham came up, and I thought that is a great example. It's not about the ham. It's about deeper stuff like memories, traditions, or unmet needs and expectations. And in that episode, I'll pop a link to it in the show notes. We talked a little bit about mismatched holiday vibes, setting boundaries without drama, and how to handle family chaos with some curiosity instead of conflict. It was fun. I always enjoy my conversations with Jodie, and you can check that out wherever it is you get your podcast. But it did inspire me to do this recording. And as I'm wrapping up for the year, I have been, like many people, totally slammed, and I don't even have a lot going on, but it's been really busy. I'm doing all this planning and prepping, and then there's all the fun stuff, and I actually want to do all the fun stuff. I want to go to Christmas parties and see people, and I know I'm going away for a little bit, and so there's this like mad rush to kind of see everyone, and it's a bit hectic, and I think I'm getting a bit of a cold because I've probably pushed it too far. But anyway, moving on. So let's say you're fighting about something. Let's think of the ham, all right? Maybe it's napkins or who hosting, and suddenly you're wondering, how did we even get here? The holiday period can make things feel a little bit bigger than normal. People are tired, they're stretched thin, they're juggling too much. School functions, end of year parties, presents to buy, family to see, things to negotiate, carting kids around. There's a lot happening. Maybe you're trying really hard to wrap things up at work, like I am, and it just keeps piling on. And all of a sudden, before you realize it, you're fighting over something like the ham or the napkins, and you just think, how did I even get here? But the thing is, it's never actually about the ham. It's about what it represents. It could be a family tradition, a memory, or a need for things to feel just right. So imagine a couple fighting over ham, and one person's Christmas Eve dinner is got this dream of family connection, of people having, a bad Santa, of staying up late. Maybe there's drink that they make, or champagne or hot chocolate. Maybe they all had matching pajamas. They've got this vision in their mind, and so setting up the table nicely, having the ham, the napkins, maybe the tree decorated, all of these things are important parts of the preparation, or even to celebrate that day with people. And maybe their partner doesn't get the fuss, they don't see the importance of it, and before you know it, you're bickering and fighting about, why do we even need these fancy napkins? Or stop fussing about the ham, it's no big deal. And before you know it, you're fighting, and neither is feeling heard or understood. And then maybe solutions are coming up like, well, just forget about the ham, or why do we bother with a tree this year, or let's just all go out for dinner and fine, crack it. All of these things can happen. And I see it a lot. I see it in couples I work with all the time. I see it in friends and family. Like, it happens. I've probably even done it too. So there's something behind that, and understanding what it is really, really important. You can't move through to problem solving or thinking of a solution or a compromise if you don't understand what's happening. So how do we understand what's really going on? Instead of jumping into, why do you need fancy napkins? Or don't worry about making such a fuss, nobody cares anyway. I mean, for the person who cares, that is really, really invalidating. And not only are they being told no one cares, they probably want appreciation for their effort And so to not have that appreciation and then to be told no one cares is crushing. So try asking something like, what does this mean to you? Tone is important here, okay? It's not helpful to say, why is this important to you? Or what's this about? It's with genuine curiosity. So try asking, what does this mean to you? Or what's important about this? Share questions that can help uncover the deeper story. What were you hoping this would look like? What's your favorite memory of this tradition, or where did this come from? What would it feel like if we actually didn't do it this way? What would happen if it didn't unfold the way that you were hoping? And start understanding what's happening. So if you're asking those things about, let's say, the Christmas ham, you might find out that maybe that was a long-standing family tradition. Or perhaps they had the opposite. They had nothing, and this was something they wanted to try and were really looking forward to, and were cutting out recipes and thinking about it for weeks or months to celebrate something special. So understanding what it is for that person is really, really helpful, because you might have similar goals or values, but you execute them in a different way. So you might also have ideas of family connection and celebrating, but for you that might look like picnic on the beach, or going camping, or having dinner out so nobody has to cook and clean. And so you're both wanting to celebrate in a way that feels relevant to you. But when you're merging two families, when you've got two brains, any two brains, even identical twins would have some differences here. It's really helpful to start to explore, to zoom out and think, what's actually behind this? What is behind this fight about the napkins or the ham? Having a chat about these things is really important. If you're listening to this episode, you're like, yeah, that's us. We are definitely fighting about the ham. Have a laugh about it. Maybe even bring this up saying, I think we might be fighting about the wrong thing. Or maybe you haven't even spoken about what an event like Christmas means or how you celebrate New Year. So actually sitting down, if it's a new relationship, awesome. You get to start some of this stuff from scratch and think, hey, these occasions are coming up in the future, or Christmas is around the corner, or New Year, or my birthday, whatever it is. And actually ask, how do you like to celebrate these things? What's important to you? What would you like to do? Because imagine now, if you love surprise parties, that's not me, I do not like that. But let's say you did, and your partner, not so much. They don't even like being the center of attention. They can't think of anything worse than having a whole bunch of people jump out at them at some event. But you organize for them a surprise party, and your birthday comes around and they do not organize that for you. That can be crushing. You could think, I've dropped hints. Why wouldn't they do this? They don't care about me. And they probably thinking, why would I do that for them? I would hate that. That sounds awful. I would never want to be the center of attention. Or it just didn't occur to them because it's not something that they need. And you've surprised them with something when they're like, I did not want that. And you're hoping for appreciation or gratitude for all the effort they put in. And they're like, get me out of here. Where's the exit? So understanding how you like to celebrate things, what's important to you. It's a little bit like those love languages, and I'll probably do an episode on that at some other point in time. So if you want to hear about it, get in touch. I'd love to hear what you want more of. But anyway, understanding how you like to celebrate things, what's important behind those values, the ending conflict is so helpful. So if you care about napkins and your partner doesn't, maybe you can find a way to simplify the rest of the meal or ask for help. If you're on the other side, instead of dismissing it and saying no one cares, you can say something like, I see how important this is to you. Let's figure it out together. Start productive conversations with curiosity. What would make this feel less stressful? What part of this is most important to you? How can I help? What can we do together? Can we divide and conquer? Being really open and curious and validating their experience. I talk about validation and empathizing all the time. It does not mean you have to agree. So if that person is saying, it's really important for me to have, napkin swans. If you know how to make them, good for you. And you're like, who cares about napkin swans? It's not important. No one cares about the napkins. I don't see what. It's totally appropriate. You might think that, but it's not okay to say that. Telling your partner that's stupid, that's ridiculous is so invalidating. So actually saying, I see that that's important to you. It makes sense based on what you've told me why you would be worried about that. I get it. It doesn't mean you have to agree. So empathizing and validating is so important. If you're trying to figure something out and it's not going as planned, or you have to compromise. Now, compromise is natural, normal, healthy. It's fine. We need to compromise. It's also appropriate and probably really helpful to acknowledge that person's sadness at not happening their way. You know, maybe you dreamed of a big family dinner, but your kids don't care, or they've repartnered, or friends have moved to other events, or someone's had a baby and couldn't make it, or your partner doesn't have the same tradition. It's totally fine to acknowledge that, to say, I can see this meant a lot to you. You know, grief doesn't mean something's wrong. It means that it mattered. And if you've lost something that mattered, even if it's a hope or a dream, that can hurt a little bit. So if you've had to adjust plans or adjust something and your partner is upset or disappointed, they're allowed to be. You don't have to fix their disappointment. You don't have to try and come up with an alternative. Sometimes just validating that and acknowledging that and empathizing with that is so helpful. That's how you fix it. That's how you stay connected, by saying, I see this meant a lot to you. It really sucks that we couldn't make it work this time. Or I totally get that you miss your family and you wish you were with them. It doesn't have to be, oh, but last year we saw your family and this year we're seeing mine and that's what we agreed. Yeah, that might be true. That might be what you agreed. And they're allowed to be sad. They're allowed to be disappointed. And it doesn't mean you have to change the plan. Just acknowledge that feeling. So if you're seeing some of these things popping up in your relationship, go in with curiosity. Go in with connection and ask more questions. Try and understand what is behind that. Remember, holidays are tense. And, you know, conflict is not the end of the world. Some of the couples that I work with have these huge fights. We sit through it, we work through it, we nut it out. And when they come out the other side, they are so much closer. There's so much more trust. Conflict handled well can really bond somebody together. It can really create a lot more connection and a lot more trust. So the magic's not in avoiding conflict, but talking about it. Preempting it, maybe sitting down after this episode and saying, hey, what have I missed? Or I seem to think, we always get into this same fight. Can we take a step back and tell me, what's that really like for you? Could make a big difference. So before the next fight, ask yourself, what's the dream behind this? And how can we make it work for everybody? Thank you for listening. To keep the conversation going, head on over to Instagram or LinkedIn and follow me. If you'd like to keep updated with episodes and other interesting things happening in mental health, join my weekly This Complex Life newsletter, where I'll share tools, tips and insight. There's a link in the show notes. Got a question you want answered? Shoot me an email or a DM. I'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoy the show, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a rating and a review. It helps other people find the podcast.